The Saskatchewan Urban Municipalities Association's annual convention has come to a close, wrapping up 4 days of conversation, collaboration, and forward-looking planning in the city of Regina. Municipal leaders from across the province came together with a shared goal: finding ways to strengthen communities of every size in every part of the province. From infrastructure and funding to healthcare and regional cooperation, the discussions reflected the challenges many municipalities continue to navigate and the importance of working together to address them equally. Now, the conversations also welcomed voices from beyond Saskatchewan. Tim Tierney, Vice President of the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, was on the ground in Regina speaking with local leaders about how national advocacy can support priorities identified here in Saskatchewan. Vice President Tierney, thank you so much for sitting down with me here at the beautiful SUMA convention in downtown adjacent Regina, because we're not officially downtown, but we're close enough to it that I could say downtown adjacent. But what brings FCM and yourself as Vice President to this beautiful convention for SUMA?
Yeah, I think it's really important, Chris, because we keep crossing paths all the time. You're everywhere, by the way. You're like Pokeroo. He's here, he's gone. You never know where he is.
You are just about to start every single one of my nightmares from my childhood all over again. I was deathly afraid of Pokeroo, but continue on with that analogy.
Okay, we'll continue. That being said, we've been making a extra effort over the last couple of years. You've probably noticed. We're going all, especially across the West, the East, we're going everywhere because of the challenges. It's not like every 4 years there's maybe a new president that's coming in. It's a very fluid situation. So we're having to work a lot closer than usual, and that will continue. And I think that's why it's important that I'm here. I can't believe they invited me back. You guys are crazy. But no, that's why I'm here, and I'll continue to come here as time goes on.
One of the things that when I was listening to your speech, and it perked my ears a little bit, I just want to ask your thoughts on it from FCM's perspective. You talked about critical minerals in Saskatchewan, critical minerals, potash, uranium, canola. These are things that drive the economy here. When you have a president or a vice president talking about critical minerals, that is something that when I was talking to a few delegates, they're like, we're surprised that they talked about it. Why was it important to talk about critical minerals in your speech?
That's where the world's going. And, again, we're at the forefront. We have the resources. We're here on the ground. And I think this is going to drive exactly where the future is going. You look at uranium. You look at small nuclear reactors, how things could make changes, because that's where the world's going to go. You don't need more hydroelectricity at some point. Guess what? That requires a lot of those precious metals. It requires uranium. Potash, obviously, agriculture-wise, that is a huge necessity. And our poor American friends are suffering right now because of what's happening with the tariff situation. So, again, it's really important stuff right here in the center of the country. And that's going to help us get out of where we're at today.
Looking at the last 2 days since you've arrived in Regina, what's the message you're hearing from delegates across Saskatchewan right now about the issues that are important to them? And on the flip side, is it similar to what you're hearing in Manitoba, Ontario, Nova Scotia, Prince Edward Island, across Canada?
There's common themes. Definitely bail reform and community safety, bar none. Every single place I go to, and we're happy to see the needle moving on that, especially on the bail reform side. Obviously, on the policing and RCMP, that's a challenge out west. We'll keep on top of that, and then of course infrastructure money and housing. These are common themes across. It doesn't matter where you go in this country. You always hear the exact same things. Now there are nuances. Obviously here, very energy-rich nation in Canada, but specifically here in the province of Saskatchewan. Let's make use of this. And what I'm hearing here is we're not making enough use of this to help out our country. We're not listening enough to the rural aspect of things. And these are notes that we take, we bring back, and we're actually working actively on more a rural listening group, being part of it and seeing a lot more action on the ground.
I want to flip to a subject that FCM has been instrumental with over the last, I would say, 15 months, and that is the trade file.
Yes.
Municipalities are on the front line of tariffs. We saw what happened last year. FCM was down in the United States over and over again. You are about to become the president of FCM in literally less than a month and a half time.
Yes.
So where do you see your role as FCM and as president in ensuring that those trade talks that you started last year in Washington, D.C. don't just stop?
And they won't. I actually outreach. I text with a lot of my American counterparts even now. When I was in Washington, D.C., I had to sit through J.D. Vance, by the way. You're welcome. But I did take part in a lot of conversations, and it was great conversations. The amount of apologies I got from our American counterparts was just wild, because they realized they need to make this work. They're concerned about a lot of things. Now, I did go back down to Salt Lake City for the National League of Cities as well. Same message. As a matter of fact, they're probably going to send a couple of delegations up to our convention, I'm hopeful. And we're going to keep that conversation going because, again, presidents are termed, and there's going to be a point in time where we're going to rebuild that relationship stronger than ever with our American counterparts, and we're not willing to let that go.
So I have two last questions before I let you go, because I'm cautious of time here, but I can imagine, because I've chatted with a few delegates since your speech,
Yep.
the common question I get is, what does FCM offer me? As a small rural community in northern Saskatchewan or southern Saskatchewan, from the vice president's perspective,
Yes.
what is the benefit for FCM to be a partner with some of the smaller communities across Canada?
Probably, Chris, this is the most valuable time, especially for the rural element. I've never seen it like this before, where that's going to drive the economy. We all know it. It's a big part of it, from agricultural to obviously stuff that comes out of the ground to uranium. This is a big factor. So what we're missing in this entire conversation is when we hear these announcements, they never address areas that might not have development charges. FCM is going very hard on that, looking for those answers. We've been passing a lot of our resolutions talking about directly looking at making streams for areas like rurals that don't have the high DC charges coming in. That is what I'm hearing. That's what our commitment's going to be. We've pressed very hard on that, and it's not all about the big cities. It's not all about the medium-sized cities, but it's a lot of the small rural areas that don't have the same amount of investment coming in to be able to help their economy. So the federal government's got to do something about that, and we're driving that really hard right now.
I know I said my final question, but
Please.
Guy from Ottawa,
Yeah.
how do you connect with people from rural Saskatchewan?
Yeah, look,
Because that's going to be the question that everyone is going to be asking is, how do you see yourself in your new position as of June, if I'm doing my basic math here right,
First
June
week of
10th,
June, yeah.
June 11th.
First week of June, that's
You'll
right.
be sworn in as president. How do you see your role in outreach?
Yeah, Chris, I can go on and say, I grew up in the valley, which I did. Yes, I threw hay the whole 9 yards. And I can preach that the city of Ottawa is 2,700 kilometers. We're very large. We have a huge rural population, a lot of four-legged friends. I can go through all that. But I think actions speak louder than words. And I have been coming out here solid for 2 years. I've been listening. I've been bringing forward everything that I've heard, especially from our rural partners and out west. And you're seeing that reflected in policy now. The policy has changed dramatically in FCM over the last couple of years. You've been around forever with me. We're barnacles. And
I feel old after talking to so many people about how long I've been here.
Right?
Okay, continue.
But it's changed. Yeah. Over the last couple of years, we've seen a dramatic shift in priority. When would you think we'd talk about bail reform and community safety? We'd talk about infrastructure. As the first items on the agenda, it's changed, and rural is a big part of that discussion. Agriculture, mining, when would we ever have those conversations before? The last 2 years, that's all it's been about. So we'll continue to drive for that. So, I'm not a city slicker. My wife may have dragged me into the city 30 years ago, but certainly I'm still very valley at heart, and I recognize the importance of it.
So what's your message? What's your parting message to Saskatchewan municipal leaders as you prepare to head back to Ottawa to do your job, but the work that you hope that they continue to do? Yeah,
make sure to come to the convention. I think that's important. You're going to see a real, like what we did in Ottawa, a rural flavor, a rural urban flavor as well. And come on out. Please come say hello to me, and you'll see we're going to continue the changes that we're doing right now.
Vice President Tierney, always a pleasure.
Same here, brother.
You stepped up to serve your community. Now take your leadership to the next level. Introducing GEMS, Governance Essentials for the Municipal Sector, a practical, Saskatchewan-based training program designed for council members and those who support them. Whether newly elected or a seasoned leader, GEMS helps sharpen the skills that matter most: decision-making, accountability, financial stewardship, infrastructure oversight, and navigating the complex realities of municipal governance. This isn't your typical classroom. GEMS is flexible, online, and built for busy people. You don't need a university degree, just a commitment to good governance. For some, it's been years since taking a course. That's okay. GEMS is designed to build confidence and knowledge. There is a short assessment, but it's there to reinforce your learning, not to trip you up. If cost is a concern, talk to your administrator, as there may be grants available to offset some of the costs. Because when local leaders grow, entire communities benefit. GEMS, because good governance isn't just important, it's essential.
From the smallest villages to the largest cities, every day your urban municipality supports you. The water that travels from tap to sewer, the emergency services that keep you safe, the parks, libraries, and rinks that you enjoy. Our cities, towns, villages, resort villages, and northern municipalities are urban hubs bringing people together. We are urban. Celebrate your municipality as part of the urban family.
And from the neighboring Alberta, Debra Reid-Mickler, Vice President of Alberta Municipalities, joined the conversation as well, highlighting how many of the issues being discussed in Saskatchewan are strikingly similar to those facing municipalities across the provincial borders. Deb, thank you so much for chatting with us here in beautiful Regina at the 121st Annual SUMA Convention. Want to start off simply, what brings Alberta municipalities to their sister organizations convention?
Well, I think it's great for us to network with our sister organisation, listen to the issues that are affecting them, and realise that a lot of them are very similar, if not the same. I was listening this morning to a story about a wastewater treatment plant challenge.
Would Duchess know a lot about that?
No, actually, we're in good shape on that front, but obviously many of our municipalities in Alberta are struggling right now with having to upgrade or put in new wastewater systems. So it's a great opportunity for us to broaden, our connections, build relationships to work together at the federal level, and be able to partner on things where we've got a stronger voice.
Looking at the similarities, if you don't mind for a second, I know Alberta Municipalities is just off their MLC convention in beautiful Edmonton. Got to keep on saying beautiful or I'll upset some mayor that I've chatted to once. Andrew, sorry. But looking at the similarities, at MLC, we talked about infrastructure, we talked about downloading, we talked about funding, infrastructure, aging infrastructure, social services, FCSS. When I'm talking to mayors and councillors from across Saskatchewan, it seems like those issues are similar, but they're unique as well in what they're addressing. So what do you take away from this convention to bring back to ABMUNIS to say, this is what's going on in Saskatchewan, and this is how we can work in partnership or in conjunction with SUMA?
So what I'm hearing so far is a lot of the funding concerns, the funding gap for infrastructure. So, taking into considering our own property taxes reimagined campaign, right, where we're actively trying to talk to the public and the government about this is the challenge that we face. So that's definitely a similarity, because I can see them right now. The conversations I've had so far have been all around there's a funding gap. We're struggling to figure out how do we give our residents that level of service that they expect or need without taxing them into submission. So a lot of similarities there. I think the differences that I'm seeing so far are a lot to do with the difference in the way the province operates, and that's way out of my knowledge zone. But just the bits I'm gleaning is that there are some differences, but I think the similarities far outweigh the differences. Yeah.
when I'm getting the conversations with either resort villages here or summer villages in Alberta, I'm getting a sense viability is also a topic
Yes.
that is coming up a lot because of funding gaps that we're seeing. When you're looking at those big picture viability pictures as Alberta Municipalities Board of Directors, is it something that needs to start being more present in the conversations that we're having with the province?
Absolutely.
Because that's
Yeah.
what I'm hearing
Yeah.
from resort villages is people of 90 permanent residents from September to May, and then 4,000 in the summer months. It's hard for them because they don't have the adequate funding.
Yeah.
So looking at funding in the big picture right now, if you don't mind, do you get a sense that we're on the right path to potentially get new funding from either the federal or provincial governments around viability?
I think our messaging is really on point. I think that the biggest challenge we have, and it's a global challenge, is that there's affordability crisis everywhere. Governments are not immune to that. If you look over to the UK and Europe, you've got councils, large council divisions that are facing bankruptcy. And so I think the viability piece is a broader spectrum discussion, and it goes back to we're still using funding models that originate from decades ago. Whether or not those models are even the models we want to continue with. And I think that's one of the reasons Alberta Municipalities is so active in trying to engage the province and the federal government on, what does this look like in 30 years? How are we going to have that in-depth discussion about funding models that work and are sustainable and they are long-term and create that long-term viability for municipalities. One of the things that came to my attention with the summer villages is that their funding is still based on an old concept of what a summer village was. I've got summer villages in some of my regions that they're actually well over 50% year-round residents now. So they're trying to provide support services to a population that's their primary residence. And they're still being viewed as that part-time. And then the other piece of it is I don't think summer villages and also the villages in Saskatchewan are being recognized as tourism destinations in a way they should be doing.
And tourism is a huge economic development opportunity that a lot of municipalities forget about, in my opinion,
Yes.
in my opinion alone. But looking at the big picture and why it's important for Alberta municipalities to be here at SUMA, what's your key takeaway so far? I know you've only been here for, I think, just over 24 hours, and I think you've met with more people than I have in that time. But what's your key takeaway about what the atmosphere is like here in Saskatchewan right now?
I think, the atmosphere I'm finding, as with Alberta Municipalities conventions, it's always very positive and it's very engaging. And I think our elected officials, for the most part, are looking for solutions in a positive way. We're a very positive bunch. I think we have to be to do this work.
I think my next guest will probably agree with that as well, but I'm not 100% sure. But Deb, I want to thank you so much for sitting down with me. Vice President Debra Reid-Mickler, thank you so much for sitting down with me. Always a pleasure to catch up with my Alberta family. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Chris. Great to see you.
Thanks for tuning in for another edition of Municipal Affairs. Now, this episode was brought to you in part by Johnson Shoyoma Graduate School of Public Policy. This is the show where we take a closer look at the people, the policies, and the practical decisions shaping local governments across Saskatchewan. Now, each episode is designed to dig beneath the headlines and bring forward real-world conversations about the challenges and, yes, opportunities facing municipalities of all sizes. Now, if today's discussion was useful or even thought-provoking, we encourage you to subscribe to the show. Leave us a review and share this episode with your colleagues, council members, and any municipal professional who cares about strong local governance. Visit crossbordernetwork.ca to learn about how you can join us on a future episode of Municipal Affairs and contribute to the national conversation on local governance. Until next time, stay informed, stay engaged, and thanks again for tuning in to Municipal Affairs.